Today on Community Watch, I am talking with Justin Shepard, who is River Remedy Brewing Company. Fascinating conversation. I learned a lot. You want to watch this as well. Community Watch starts now. And welcome to Community Watch. Today I'm having a conversation with my guest, Justin Shepard of River Remedy, owner and, well, your card says head beard in charge.
Yes, it's a pun.
Yeah, I got it. And River Remedy, for folks who don't know, is on Glen Milner, just to one side of the main downtown part of Rome. How long have you been there?
We've been there since, April of 21. We opened the doors to the public in December of 21.
Okay.
And we switched over to being a brewery in December of 22.
All right, I need to find out about all those things, but I got to tell you, the idea of having a cold beer within feet of the place I work has been a fantasy for decades, and now it exists. It's really kind of wonderful.
I'm glad I could help with that.
All right, so tell me more about the business itself, and then we'll get into your background with it. But tell us more about what River Remedy is and what folks can get there.
Okay. River Remedy Brewing Company, it started as a craft beer serving bar intentionally just because it takes a while to open a brewery, and then converted to the brewing process as soon as we could. That was intentional just because of the time delays, licensing. In some cases you can blame that on COVID and things like that. But River Remedy Brewing Company itself is a brewery making a very small scale amount of beer at a time, just basically for the local community of Rome, while also dealing in charity. We donate a portion of every pint we sell to a charity once a quarter. We focus on local charities only. We don't do national ones, and 501c3s and all that kind of jazz. We just finished, as of yesterday, which would at the time of this podcast yesterday, with Tread, which helps out with our local trails for biking and hiking and things like that. And they do a lot more. I highly encourage people to go take a look at that. And then starting the 1st of October, yesterday, we are now supporting RIF, Rome International Film Festival, which a lot of people don't realize is a 501c3. They actually are a charity organization. In the past, we've done things with the Davies Shelter, the Hospitality House, the CRBI, Coosa River Basin Initiative, things like that. We intend to do a lot more. We have more charities per capita in Floyd County than I think I've learned that's anywhere else in the U.S. per capita.
Really?
We have a lot of charities.
I recognize that, but I never thought about
it's a lot. Now, I could be wrong. I read one thing saying that. I mean, I'm not going to say that's absolute, but I would recommend anybody to look that up.
That idea is really interesting.
There's definitely a lot, and the same thing I read about that was referring mainly to the homeless that we do have, and a lot of the church organizations helping with that. And so it's not just like homeless charities; it's addiction and substance abuse and also home and taking care of children or mothers that are trying to take care of themselves with children, things like that. There's several different organizations that a lot of them are church-based, and this is the Bible Belt, so we have a lot of them, and they're very It's a lot of work with that one. So our focus, again, going back to what you asked, sorry to kind of
No, that's good.
Dieter there, is to make good beer and serve the community, and also be able to take that money by serving the community and give it back to the community and work with them. That's why we don't work with the national charities, because they get a lot more money from a lot bigger places than me, and they don't really need me, in my opinion. That I think the local ones need me a lot more, and I want to stick with that.
Now, do you are the 501c3s that you choose, are they nominated, or are you just ones that you find out about, or I mean, how do you select?
So we have several owners, and there are several opinions on how we should go about that, and we're going to standardize it more going forward. We're having those conversations now. We've only gone, since we've opened, we've gone through 7 different charities now. We're on number 8. That being said, we went with the ones that we were all familiar with first. The ones that we knew were vetted. They have never been an issue. They aren't having issues. The money's going to the right places, because you got to be careful about that sometimes.
Course,
and I don't want to put any shade or problems with any of the charity communities that we have around here. But there have been 1 or 2 small instances, and we just got to be meticulous about that. Make sure that the people's money's going where it needs to go. We're working on a plan on how we're going to further organize that. Right now we're doing an application process where people can just ask for the application. We'll give it to them and they can fill it out, and we'll put it on file. And later on, once we finalize how we're going to pick the next 4 for the year, because it's once a quarter, then we'll proceed with that.
Right.
But we're leaving that to our own discretion. We don't really advertise what the upcoming ones are. We announce them as they come. And I think you're the first person I've told that this one is Riff, actually. So,
Yeah.
so congratulations with that.
Other people are hearing it too, I hope. But that's great. That's excellent. I didn't know y'all did that.
Oh yeah. To date, we've donated $16,000 in our first year and a half.
That is spectacular. That's
It's
spectacular.
a lot of it's thanks to the music that we get to play as well with the local bands that like to work with us, and things like that too. But that's another subject.
All right. So River Remedy continues to be a beer bar, and now is a brewery. So I don't know. I would expect a brewery would need a lot of space, and your establishment is a nice size, but it's not my vision of what a brewery would require. So how do you do that on that space?
So there's a couple of reasons for that perception.
Yeah.
Georgia, and I'll be very brief with this because it could go a very long time with that subject.
Okay, that's all right.
Georgia just legalized in 2017 the ability for breweries to sell a pint of beer to the public. Before 2017, you couldn't do that. So breweries before that, just 6 years ago, had to open much bigger. And that was because they had to go with the distribution model, and they had to sell it a lot cheaper by the bulk to bars and restaurants through a third party called a distributor. And they weren't making as much money per gallon, I guess you would say, or per barrel, as you would on a smaller scale like me, because they couldn't sell it to you and give you a pint like we were discussing earlier. Like we have a place where you can go get a pint now. Since they changed that, the smaller models can open up and function pretty well. They have a lot of these in other states. A lot of them aren't in the Southeast. A lot of them are more in the Pacific Northwest and in California and areas like that. Montana and Wyoming, areas like that have a lot as well. Michigan's up and coming as well. But we're getting more. We've opened up quite a few breweries in the last 2 or 3 years after COVID and after that law passed, because it takes a year and a half, 2 years, 2.5 years to open a brewery. So there's a lot of time delays, and COVID just stopped a bunch of it for a little while. But now you're going to start seeing a lot more breweries like the size that I am, I think, popping up in Georgia, thankfully, and we're able to do that. I do have the intention of expanding a little bit bigger so that I can distribute my beer a little bit more, but that's why you're starting to see this for the first time, having a smaller brewery.
Yeah. So the term microbrew, how much or how little is made for it to qualify as that? What makes it a microbrew?
That is I think that is a bit of a controversial point right now. They're trying to define what the cutoff for that is. it's pretty big right now. But in comparison, a major actual brewery is so much bigger. For example, 1 barrel is 31 gallons. I'm a 2-barrel system. I make 62 gallons per batch. Budweiser in Cartersville, right next door to us, they have 800-barrel systems running at all times to give you a volume idea.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bigger name breweries that are craft that you would hear, like Sam Adams, Dogfish Head, Terrapin, Sweetwater, they're in the middle there. Maybe a little bit higher side of that, but they're in the middle. And a lot of those are still considered micro, and they keep pushing that envelope because a lot of those brewery names, they don't want to be considered a brewery and be side by side with Budweiser or Miller or Coors.
Right.
They want to be independent still, and that tagline makes them feel like they're not doing good. But I think it's perfectly fine for them to be called that. But I think there's a tax level to that as well, so I'm not sure on those deals.
So we need to invent a new term.
I think that the federal government's working on that right now because they want some of that tax money. But I just don't know both sides of that argument well enough to talk about it. I'm not sure what the number is to be called a microbrewery. I definitely know that I fit, though. I know I'm way below all those.
You're definitely micro.
Right.
All right, so 2 barrels. So how do you and all of the beer that you make at the moment at least is sold exclusively in your store?
As of 4 weeks ago, we started having some sold downtown on Broad Street.
Okay.
I finally picked up a third-party distributor so I can legally sell it downtown.
And how long does it take to make beer?
Obviously, it depends,
Yeah.
but as short for some of the brews that I make, I can have one rotated out in as quickly as about 8 or 9 days, or in some cases, like a lager, it can take a month or a little bit more.
Wow.
That's the average window is between about a week and a half to 4 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's some that take a lot longer, but really not many that would be shorter.
And are you doing a big variety of types, or just a few, or?
Yeah. We have 13 taps of alcohol right now, and I say alcohol because we actually obtained a separate approval, a license, from the federal government, allowing us to make wines through a loophole in Georgia law. We can make wine under 6% alcohol. And that allows us to make cider and mead, which is honey wine, under 6%. And if we went higher, we'd actually have to get a winery license, a farmhouse winery or something like that. And there's a lot more stipulations with that I just can't really get into. It's just too much stuff for my business to need. Like, you need farmland. You have to have 30% of your product come from what you grow, and I don't have time to be a farmer.
Right.
So I've just got that smaller license so I can have some other options as well. But we have 13 taps of alcohol right now, 13 different varieties.
Are they all yours?
They are all mine.
Now that's impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
That's very impressive.
I work a lot.
So it's not you are not selling any that are not yours.
Correct. We can't, because we are a brewery. State law in Georgia, you can be a brew pub. And if you remember the old Rome City Brewing Company we had here downtown, they were a brew pub license. There's a bunch of different stipulations with that as well. You have to sell 50% food is one of them. And that allows you to sell other people's beer, wine, and liquor. But if you're just a brewery, you're only allowed to manufacture your grain-based product. And in my case, I'm also allowed to now do other sugar sources like fruit as well for smaller beers or smaller drinks.
I am learning a lot today.
It's what I do for a living. I have to sit there and read and learn. And that's the hardest part about all this, actually, is learning stuff. I learn stuff every day.
We need to take a break, so I'm going to learn some more after the break. You will too. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Access to me means I get to explore and define myself.
Access
That allows me to follow my passion.
For me, it means I get to do what I've always dreamed of doing, helping people.
Access to me means I'm the first one in my family to come to college. Sé el primero.
Welcome back to Community Watch. I'm having a conversation with Justin Shepard of River Remedy Brewing, which is on Glen Milner. Before I get into anything else, I need to ask you some very basic questions that people I know are dying to know. When do you open?
When do I open?
What days and times are you open?
We're only closed on Mondays. We're open Tuesday through Friday from 4 until 10. We'll stay open a little bit later on Friday. Saturday open at noon, and Sunday we open at 3. We're open till late on Saturday. Sunday we'll cut it off around like 8 o'clock, so unless we just stay busy.
All right, so Monday's the only day you're not open.
And I just need that day to do stuff. Brew, clean, keg, all the fun stuff.
I understand that. That's good. And again on Glen Milner. All right, so I wanted to ask about because I I don't know how often you schedule them, but I do see food trucks there pretty often. Are they there every day or just some days?
Almost every day.
How does that work?
Almost every day. We typically have them Wednesday through Saturday, and the occasional Sunday and Tuesday we'll have trucks lately. We've been trying to convince more to come out, but they are slower days, and this time of the year in the fall, there are a lot of big events, and a lot of these trucks are running out of food going into those 2 days, so they're trying to stay stocked up for the festivals and things like that right now. But at least Wednesday through Saturday, we usually have them every single one of those days.
Because you can't provide any food currently, right?
I could, but I don't.
Okay.
Reason being, again, I'm such a small business, like we were talking about before, such a small location. I don't have room for a kitchen, but I could if I wanted to. There's no law saying I couldn't.
All right.
But I do sell retail packaged food stuff, you know, pretzels and cheeses and things like that.
But the food trucks add a, kind of a nice variety. How do you go about selecting them or inviting them? How does that work?
A lot of them contact me. Every now and then I'll see a new one around town or in the local surrounding cities, and I'll give them a call, and we'll try to put them on the calendar, see if we can get them in at some point. Right now we've got quite a few in Rome, and a lot of them are busy. Some of them it doesn't quite work out with, but we have a consistent 3 or 4 that are always around every week, and then a few extras that kind of pop in once every other week or 3 or 4. And then you have stuff from out of state or out of city, like in Atlanta or something. They'll come up here about once a month or two just to kind of get out there, like that lobster truck you see over there every now and then. They'll pop in here once in a while.
But I would guess that that combination of your beer and a food truck would bring a lot of folks. Be a lot of interest in that.
It can. We some days more than others. It's kind of unpredictable sometimes. Sometimes we know we're going to be busy with certain trucks and certain new beers that I'll release, and then sometimes we'll expect it and nobody shows up. But Rome is a fickle mistress like that. It just happens. Now,
how did you pick that location, and why did you pick that? Was it is it the only place you could go, or?
Pretty much. That's all we could find. We looked for about 6 months, and we had one other location in mind, and they never got back with us, unfortunately. We tried. It's difficult. A lot of the property downtown is already owned by realtors, and they only want to loan it out. They don't want to sell it, or lease it out rather. And we don't foresee us being able to own our own building for quite some time until one of these guys is willing to let go of a piece of property, but we don't see that happening anytime soon. So we're always looking for the next spot just in case we can expand, but it's a hard search.
Well, it seems like a great place for this business. I mean, there's not a lot of competition on that side of downtown, and there seems to be some space there. Has it been a positive choice for the most part?
I would say yes. I don't think that there would have been a better option to start off with. Mm-hmm. We have some ideas now that we've been established for a little bit of what we want to do next, but it's not a bad spot. We like it. We want to expand a little bit more to make life a little bit easier for all of us. Yeah. But it's other than that, I mean, it's been good. We have just enough space outside to do live music. We have just enough parking to suit the place and fill it up when we want to. We have a lot of outdoor space where we can do like fire pits when we want to for the colder times. We've got a deck outside with some sunshade for the hotter parts of the year. It's a quaint little spot. Yeah. So it definitely works out. It's what we need. It was definitely what we needed to start off with as a lower start budget kind of thing. Right. But we are looking for a newer spot right now. Nothing's concrete because there's not really much out there.
Yeah. So, the music that you have, how often are there bands? Is it weekly or?
We typically have about a band a week, at least an acoustic show a week. We typically have a lot of acoustic shows a week. Every other Tuesday, we got one guy that comes in there who's great. We usually have a Friday or Saturday music. Sometimes it's duos, sometimes it's full bands. But we'll have them Thursday, Friday, and Saturday sometimes, and it'll be just back to back. That's what we had this last weekend, actually. Yeah. Friday and Saturday both. We had bands play, and it was a pretty fun time. We had a pretty good weekend.
And I understand you've been involved in some interviews about noise in the area.
Yes, there were some complaints that were being filed, and the city and us had been getting together on this for a while now. I've been working with them a lot, trying to make sure that this is not an issue, not a problem, making sure we're abiding by every law and every ordinance. And we've been doing everything pretty well. Yeah. So I've had one or two people putting my name in the paper, and it's kind of gotten me a few phone calls lately, unfortunately. But all of them in good nature, thankfully. Nobody was out here trying to call anybody out or slander someone's name or anything like that. So trying to stay away from those kind of like hit pieces, I think they call them. Right. Trying to stay away from all that.
Well, I can't speak to the volume that you have with music at your location, but it does seem like there's a lot of noise from different sources around town. Certainly traffic related. Mm-hmm. I am aware of complaints primarily around fireworks at the holidays. There's always, some complaining there.
Well, I can say that the chief complaint that the city receives for noise-related activity is not even fireworks. It's actually exhaust noise from a lot of the trucks around here. A lot of the squatted trucks and things like that having like 8 to 12-inch tip exhaust and just blaring downtown. Right. And the concern is not that, these guys want to have what they want and do what they want to do. It's how they're presenting themselves. We'll have patrons from out of town showing up downtown to have a nice meal in the outside area of like Harvest Moon, for example, and then this kid decides they want to go by just blasting their exhaust as loud as they can, and it's not conducive to the environment. So the city's been hard pressed to do something about it, and they're working on it very much.
Well, I hope that doesn't become a serious problem for you because it seems like such a great place for music and food and beer.
So far, so good. I don't think it'll be an issue. Everything that we've done has seemed to be pleasing everybody involved, referring to the city, the police, and everyone else involved. We've been very proactive, hiring officers when necessary and things like that, and nobody seems to really have an issue with us on that.
Well, let's get back to the beer.
Best part.
I've left it too long. I need to get back to it. Tell me a little more about how many taps? 13? Did you say 13 taps? Are there some standard ones that you brew on a regular basis and then mix up? Throw in different ones you haven't tried before, or how do you go about deciding what those 13 will be?
Yeah, so we have about 6 core beers, is what I refer to them as, our flagships, I guess you say. Yeah. We got a light beer, we got a malty beer, we got a wheat beer, we got 2 of the IPA hoppy beers, and you got a stout. Very simple lineup, nothing crazy. Then after that, I've got the mead that I mentioned before, the honey wine, a cider, and a seltzer. And then I have just a few taps left over, and I'll rotate those through different things. Right now, one of them is an Oktoberfest, one of them is a German Kolsch, and another one is a hoppy pale ale, helping to raise money for breast cancer right now for the month of October. It's month of October. That's the thing is breast cancer awareness for it. So we teamed up with several other breweries doing the same. It's called Fighter Fluid. But in previous months, I've had several other ones, and I'll come up with new ideas, tried and true. As we pick and choose, maybe I adjust things. I can't pigeonhole myself though and make another one a mainstay, because then I'll have nowhere to put different beers on.
Right,
I got to keep trying new stuff. So we already have our main 6 cores, and I swap out the other non-beers to different fruit flavors and things like that frequently. Like right now, one of them is a tangerine mead, another one's a plain cider, and the seltzer is passion fruit orange and guava. And those will all 3 probably be something different in about 2 to 3 weeks.
So what are the most popular ones?
Those first 6, that's one of the reasons we leave them there. They've been the most popular. The malty beer is called Sabotage. It's an alt beer. It's a German-style beer that's like in between a red ale and a brown ale. It's 5.3% alcohol. It's nothing overbearing, easy to drink. It's really good, and people tend to like it as a malty substitute for a red ale or an Oktoberfest. The other one is our wheat beer. It's a Oostenala Great White Ale, and it's a pun off of certain social media pages saying that there's sharks in our rivers whenever it floods here. So we took that and ran with it and called it the Oostenala Great White Ale. And it's actually won a silver medal with the U.S. Open for beer this last year. So it's been a pretty popular one. People tend to like a lot. Whether it's hot outside or not, they like it.
Well, we are almost out of time. I appreciate so much what you're doing at River Remedy, and I appreciate you being on the show with us.
Yeah, anytime. I can come back if you need me to.
Sure. We need to do a live remote down there, Brian. Let's plan that.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Yeah. But thanks again. And thank you for being with us on Community Watch. We'll see you next time.